Gyal. Today I'm going to be giving you guys the full rundown on the new DreamGasm palette from Charlotte Tilbury. This was launched in her GLOWGASM collection. Now you guys know that the GLOWGASM palettes did not work for me. I have both of them and they didn't cut it. I actually sent them back because they're pretty expensive. I will leave a link up in the iCards to my full review on those two palettes. They were just definitely not for me. I don't feel like they matched my skin tone because I liked shades from each palette. There wasn't like one palette that just strictly worked for me and my skin tone and what I like. So it was like I would have to mix and match both of those palettes to make them work. So I just went ahead and shipped them both back. So I don't have them to show you, but I was excited to get the DreamGasm palette because I do love Charlotte Tilbury's 4-pan quads. I do like them. I know they're very expensive. This palette retails for $53. This is a limited edition palette and it's only available on the Charlotte Tilbury website, which I will leave a link to it in the description box down below. Now, earlier this morning, I uploaded my review of this palette and I wanted to keep it less than 20 minutes. I didn't want to go like crazy into like 25-30 minutes. So typically I do like to palette swatch and compare to other palettes that I have in my collection, and in that video I didn't do that. So I really didn't feel like that review was my best work, just because I like to be thorough and I like to be detailed, and in order to be thorough, to give you guys as much information about this palette as I possibly can, I really need to swatch this next to the other palettes that I have from Charlotte Tilbury, just so that you guys can see if you have a lot of the palettes from Charlotte Tilbury, if this is something that's worth picking up. On the Charlotte Tilbury website, she describes this palette as, my DreamGasm eye palette has 3 of my most famous eyeshadow shades. From your favorite Exaggerized, Pillow Talk, and Dolce Vita luxury palettes, get ready to fall in love. Now, it does, in that quote, it says that 3 of the most famous eyeshadow shades. But I don't think she's meaning that they are the exact shade. I think it's the formula, in my opinion. This is my opinion, because I have actually swatched this next to my other palettes that she mentioned. I have the Exaggerized, the Dolce Vita, and the Pillow Talk. So I'm assuming that this palette is laid out and has the same formula as the other 3 palettes that she mentioned. So I don't think they're the exact shade, but they're definitely the same formula. This is the second day that I played with this palette, and I come up with this look, and it was very, very easy to create. All I did was I put this shade right here all over the lid, and then I put this gold shade right here on the outer corner, kind of like from the middle on to the outer corner. And then I took this shade right here and I just kind of created a V right here in this area. And then I took a small brush and just kind of blended it out. Then I also put that shade along the lower lash line. I did take a little bit of this micro glitter or rose gold shade and kind of sprayed it onto the inner corner and left it. I really like this eyeshadow look. In the original video, I created a full tutorial. In that video, you'll see me here putting the rose gold just strictly on one eye alone with a brush. All I did was spray the brush, kind of placed it on the eye, and I wanted you guys to see the intensity from that shade. On the other eye, I used the exact same brush, just a natural haired, the Sonia G. I used the Worker Pro. When you're picking up that micro glitter formula in that corner, in that rose gold, I recommend, if you don't use your finger, which in my opinion, the finger is the best way to apply that shade, but I recommend using a natural soft-haired brush that really can pick up that product. If you use a synthetic brush, I don't think you're going to be able to get the same intensity. A synthetic brush is not going to pick up that shade quite like a finger or a natural haired brush. So if you use a natural haired brush, I recommend spraying it just to kind of get the best intensity. But on the other eye, I went ahead and put the gold down first because I wanted to see what the gold would look like, and then putting the rose gold over top of that. It turned out really, really pretty. I did eventually add the gold to the other side just so that they would match. Then I took the dark shade right here on the bottom row with a Crease Pro brush, and I just ran it through my crease and just really blended it out. I went ahead and built it up a little bit just to add a little bit more intensity because I really wanted to see just how shimmery that shade is. When you put a light coat of it like I have on today, sometimes it's hard to see the intensity of the shimmer. Then I just took a pencil brush and placed it along the lower lash line and just kind of buffed that out. And I really love that shade, but I always love her shimmer shades on my lower lash line. Like, I I love the way that her shimmer shades look on the lower lash line. They're just, it's always just very, very beautiful and very subtle. It's not overly shimmery. So then next up, I just went ahead and grabbed the lightest shade in the palette, stuck that in my inner corner. Later off camera, I did take my Sigma shader crease brush, the E47, and I went down into that shade and I just kind of lightly kind of buffed that into my brow bone and just kind of highlighted that upper part. But this palette is very easy to use. I've never had an issue with Charlotte Tilbury palettes. I have several of them, and for me, they're very, very buildable shadows. And I think the thing that's different about Charlotte Tilbury versus maybe like a Pat McGrath, they're not overly pigmented. So it's not like it's an explosion of pigment and you have to work really hard to blend them out. Now don't get me wrong, Pat McGrath palettes are incredibly pigmented and they blend out like a dream, but you do have to work to really build them out. Charlotte Tilbury is a little bit different. I feel like it's a little bit more user-friendly, and I've always been a super fan of this micro glitter. Now, I don't know what she calls it, but that's kind of my interpretation of what this shade is. She has it in all of the palettes that she suggested. It's a micro fine and it's designed to give a wet look. So as you'll see, I have it here on my finger, and it is designed to be kind of that wet look, but you can also build it on top of itself, which I really appreciate that. So let's go ahead and do some swatches, show you guys how this compares to other palettes, and then I will give you guys my full final thoughts. Okay, so here is the swatches of the 4 shades. This one is that light shade on the very top row. This is that gold shade on the top row. And then this one is that sheer shade, which is actually really pretty. And it kind of has, it has a nice undertone to it. So even though it's kind of a sheer wet look, it does have a nice undertone. Let me swatch it up here so you guys can see what this looks like by itself. So you can build up the intensity on that one, or you can just kind of, like this one I went in twice, this is once. So just so you guys can see the difference in intensity when you're swatching them. I'm not the best swatcher, I definitely apologize, but yeah, typical Charlotte Tilbury. They're all shimmer. There's not one matte shade in this palette. These are definitely all very shimmery, but obviously very, very beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and compare this palette first to the Icon palette, which was the newest palette to her collection, and that's not a part of the 4-pan palettes, but this one released, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, maybe-ish. So it looks like the only shade that I would say is maybe similar to this is maybe this top shade up here, but this is also one of her, oh, look at that shade, you guys. Oh my gosh. I love this shade. I love this palette. You can tell I've used a lot of this palette. Let's go ahead and swatch this one and maybe this one, maybe this one, and this one. So this is from the 4-pan. This is from the Icon. This one is that top shade that I just swatched. This one right here. So they're not the same. This one has more of a yellow undertone. This one definitely has more of a pink, kind of a rosy undertone. Now let's go into this shade right here, and let's go into this one right here. There's some similarities between those shades. This one from the DreamGasm palette, it might have a little bit more of like a brick-ish kind of a burnt red shade to it. This one might be a little bit more of like a brighter maroon, but they're very, very similar. So just know that they, you know, there's some similarities there. Let's go into this micro glitter to salvage my palette and not like, you know, completely use up this shade and, you know, swatching it several times. I'm just going to do one good swatch right up here. I am going to compare all of the shadows to just that one shade, just because I don't want to go into it 20 different times and ruin it. You know what I mean? Let's go ahead and put this one next to it. There's that one from the Icon palette, and the Icon is definitely more pinkish. This one is more of a rose gold. Let's go into this shade right here. As you can see, there's not really some similarities. This one's got more of like an orange undertone. This one, you know, is definitely still rose gold. Let's swatch this gold one right up here. Let's swatch that right here. Let's swatch it next to this one right here, maybe both of these. So just ignore this one because I'm keeping that one there. So this is from the DreamGasm palette. This shade is from the Icon. This shade is from the Icon. So there's some similarities, but they're different. I mean, they're not the exact same shade. Now let's compare it to the Dolce Vita. So the Dolce Vita is the one that she described in her description. So this is the Dolce Vita. This is definitely one of my favorites. I am obsessed with this army green shade. It's so damn pretty. And I really don't have anything like it in my collection. So let's go ahead and compare this red shade from the DreamGasm palette to this shade right here in the Dolce Vita. So this is the DreamGasm, this is the Dolce Vita. So the Dolce Vita is just a little bit darker. So they're not the same shade. They look similar, but they're definitely not the same shade. Let's compare the two up here in the corner. So this one right here, this light one. Okay, so this is the DreamGasm, this is the Dolce Vita, and they're almost the exact same shade. Very similar. I would almost say that they're almost the exact same shade, just so that you guys can see that. So what I'm talking about is this shade right here, and this shade right here. Very similar. There's no other shades that compares in this palette, but I do want to mention briefly, this is one of those micro pigment shimmer shades that I was talking about. So I don't really know if that is exactly what it is, but it's the exact same formula as this one right here from the DreamGasm. It has that design. It's designed to give you that wet look, and you can pop it over any eyeshadow and just really grab and give a wet look, which I really appreciate. And you know, like I said, this has been one of my favorites for when I'm doing more of like a fall look, a Christmas look, or a nighttime look. I really like the Dolce Vita palette. Let's go ahead and move on to the Pillow Talk palette. So let's go ahead and swatch this one right up here at the top and compare it to this one in the top of the GLOWGASM. So this is Pillow Talk, this is GLOWGASM, and the Pillow Talk has a faint pink undertone. This one doesn't. This one is just more of a, this is more of like a cream, like my shirt kind of cream undertone. This one has a pink. Not like the Dolce Vita. Like I kind of have a feeling that the Dolce Vita and the GLOWGASM are the same shade. I kind of have a feeling. I'm going to go ahead and swatch this from the Pillow Talk palette. This is from the Pillow Talk palette. This is from the DreamGasm. So this is that micro pigment kind of wet look effect. And as you can see, the DreamGasm is definitely more of that rose gold undertone. The one from the Pillow Talk has just a nice pink undertone to it. So kind of a nice pink base to it. Okay, so let's go move on to the Exaggerize palette. So again, same type of formula here. Now I did want to mention in the Pillow Talk palette, you know, there's two matte shades and then the shimmer and then this like micro glitter. In this palette, this one is, you know, you got your two shimmers down here, you have a matte shade and you have a micro glitter. And I'll be honest with you, this is how I prefer a palette to be laid out within these quads. So this is just my preference, you guys, but I prefer at least having one shade as a matte. So that is the one reason why I think the Exaggerize is my favorite out of all of these, only because I really like that matte shade, and just so that I don't have to pull from another palette. And I love this shimmer shade, like it's a perfect shimmer to go with this whole color theme. And I kind of wish that this one was made like that, because you have three shimmers and then one of the micro glitters, exactly the same way as you do in the Dolce Vita. So the Dolce Vita has all three shimmers and then this micro glitter. So don't get me wrong, it's not that it's that big of a deal, and it's not that I don't love her shimmer formula. This palette in particular is that this is very buildable. So the thing that I struggled with in the Pillow Talk palette is that the two matte shades were not very buildable, and this one was so light that it's really not going to show up on somebody with like a medium. Definitely if you are darker than I am, it's just kind of it's going to look like you have pink eye, you know what I mean? This one I wish was more buildable, and so even though I like the color scheme on this one hasn't been my favorite. I think for those who would really like this as somebody who has a lighter skin tone, because I really think that these would complement your skin pretty good. But I mean, maybe it depends on if you like pink and all that. Let's go ahead and show you what this micro pigment, this one has more of like a silver undertone. Obviously it's not going to be the exact same. This is one swatch. This is went in twice. So by the way, This swatch right here from the DreamGasm palette, I went in twice on that one. This one I only went in once, but you can definitely build that, and I just love, love, love the intensity that it gives the eye. It is so pretty. Let's go ahead and swatch this one. Now, the only thing that I don't like about the Exaggerate palette is that shade I just swatched. Although it blends out very beautifully, it's a little bit powdery. So if you don't really like a powdery eyeshadow, I don't know why it's so powdery, because the rest of these are not. Like, this is not powdery at all. But as you can see, it's just extremely powdery. It's not my favorite, but I still love it. And I just make sure that I blend it out good, because it can get powdery. So this is from the DreamGasm, and this is from the Exaggerate. So you can see that there is no similarities between those top two first shades in the palette. Last but not least, we have the Stars in Your Eyes. Now, the Stars in Your Eyes is not available anymore. This was definitely a limited edition palette, but for those of you that have Charlotte Tilbury Stars in Your Eyes, I'm gonna go ahead and swatch a few shades that I would kind of feel like are similar to this. Let's go into this shade right here in the DreamGasm, and then let's go into this shade right here. Okay, so as you can see, the Stars in Your Eyes, it's more of a more metallic-y type shade. The DreamGasm, it's more of like a satin shimmer. This one in the Stars in Your Eyes is definitely has a little bit more metallic to it. So there's similarities within the shade, but the actual finish itself, in my opinion, is different. Let's go into this shade right here, and let's go into maybe like these two shades right here. So this is the DreamGasm, and then this is from the Stars in Your Eyes. And this is a different formula. So this one right here that I swatched is this one right here, and this one is that micro glitter. As you can see, it's a little bit blinding. So it's, in my opinion, it's a mixture between the micro glitter and this metallic. So you can see it's more blinding. Again, this is from the DreamGasm. This is more of the satin shimmer shade, and there's no similarities between those. So let's do this one. This one is this one's one of my favorite shades in this palette. Okay, so as you can see, this is the micro glitter. This is more of a metallic satin shimmer formula. It's just so pretty. It's one of my favorites because it's got that peach undertone. You guys know I love peach, right? I mean, I think it's well known. Like, if you've only watched one of my videos, you guys know I love peach. I'm so predictable. So I'm just not seeing any other similarities within this palette. Okay, so let me get into my final thoughts about this palette. Do I feel like this palette is necessary? No. And if you have all the other palettes that I mentioned, you know, you probably don't need this one. I don't feel like this palette is like revolutionary. I don't feel like this palette is something that, oh my gosh, you guys have got to have this palette. You will, like, it will change your life. Absolutely not. I feel like this palette is only necessary for those of you out there who are like me, who love Charlotte Tilbury, love her formula, love her eyeshadows, and love her brand, and you want it in your collection because, one, it's limited edition, and two, you just like Charlotte Tilbury. You know what I'm saying? I believe that this is very dupable. I don't believe this shade is dupable because it's very unique rose gold with that micro glitter wet look, but I do believe that it is dupable in other palettes. Like, I don't feel like it's so different that you need to just run out and grab it. I don't feel like this is a palette for everyone. I feel like it's just for that woman that loves Charlotte Tilbury. Bottom line, I'm a Charlotte Tilbury fan, and so it was definitely something I was going to pick up regardless. If I didn't have my channel, I definitely still would have bought that palette just because I love Charlotte Tilbury so much. Like, I love her products, which was a bummer that the GLOWGASM palettes didn't work for me, but they didn't. So do I feel like this is a necessary purchase? No. Do I feel like there are some similarities? There are some similarities, but with Charlotte Tilbury, a lot of her shades are similar. So I don't feel like this palette is any different than some of her other palettes that she's launched, because there's always going to be similarities within her palettes and within her shades, because that's just her brand. I will be using this. I do love the eyeshadow look that I created today. The thing that I like about the Charlotte Tilbury palettes versus some of the other palettes that I have in my collection, I do reach for them quite frequently, and it's just because they're very easy for me to do. Like, I created this eye look in probably 5 minutes flat. Both eyes. Done. I just knocked it out. they're very easy for me to use, and they're very user friendly, and I do feel like her shadows in particular are mature skin friendly. Like, I feel like if you have hooded eyes, or, you know, if you are at that age where your eyelids are starting to get a little bit more on the wrinkly side, and you want a shimmer, but you don't want it to be like a crazy amount of shimmer, I think that's where her shades are unique, and I feel like that's her, like, that's kind of what her palettes were designed for, is just to be a very beautiful but not overwhelming shimmer, and, you know, not something that's just completely pigmented. If you're somebody that likes a lot of pigment, then Pat McGrath is definitely a brand that I would reach for, because, you know, her palettes are undeniably got so much pigment that you're in pigment heaven. Charlotte Tilbury brand is not like that. So do I feel like that this is a necessary purchase? Probably not. But like I said, if you are a fan of Charlotte Tilbury and you really like her products, I don't think you're going to have any problems with this palette. It blends beautifully. I really love it, and I really love that rose gold. You guys know I love that rose gold, bronzy, peachy type products. Those are the shades that I love and reach for, and especially with summer coming, it's just my favorite thing. But do I feel like this is, you know, necessary? No. So thank you guys so much for your patience in me taking down the old video and putting up a new video. I hope that these palette swatches were helpful for you guys. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys again for all the love that you guys show me and my channel. It means the absolute world to me. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day filled with love and joy. I will see you guys in my next video, and I love you all so much. Bye!